This is the convexing clamp, the new convexing clamp for the Okami Gold system. And the clamp itself will rotate up and down. You can see that at the bottom of the piece of the clamp that's attached to the stop block on the convexing clamp is where you would set your angle. In this particular case, we have it set for 40 degrees. This is still in the same place where the two parts of the clamp would come together. It forms a line and you can set your angle. So I'll set this one for 40 degrees and do a scratch test. This is a Taiwanese shear. So we will see how this looks. So to do the scratch test, you hold the scissor up against the wheel firmly and just spin the wheel downward with your thumb. We'll take the scissor and rotate the scissor up and see if we can see that scratch. And just barely in the video, I'm sure that you can see that. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on YouTube or not. But right here we can actually see that there is a slight scratch on that shear. We'll see if we can shoot a close-up. Back to where we were, I'm going to show 3 different ways to sharpen with this clamp. When we create our edge, we actually want to do a series of step-up angles on the blade. So I'm going to show, the first way is actually changing the angle each time that you do your step-up grind. The second way is going to be a way that a machinist showed me with a coin to be able to do that step-up. And then the third way that we'll show it is just where you can actually use the shear, or you can sharpen the shear up and just do it freehand the entire way. So we'll start off the first way, which is the way that will be described in the information, the little guide that would come with this clamp. So we'll start here in the throat, work my way towards the tip, and then come away. And we're going to check and see if we have an angle, which we do. It looks good. We have a good burr as well with one pass. If you can one pass it, that's great. What we'll do now is go from 40 to 45. Just changing the angle of the clamp, and I'm going to make a very light pass across the shear. I'm going to go from 45 to 50, and again do the same thing. Very light pass across the shear. And then I will go from 50 to 55, and very lightly, again, go across the shear. What this is doing is it's doing a step up across the front surface of the scissor. I can even go a little bit beyond 55 to about 60-ish or so, and then do one final pass across the blade if I wish. Now that you actually have a series of bevels that have been cut up the shear, you will go ahead and go back and work on the polishing wheel after you have worked the inside of the scissor to recreate a new inside line. The second step that I'm going to show you on how you can sharpen with this clamp is done, believe it or not, with a penny. Very simple to do. Again, I have clamped my scissor in. I am at 40 degrees, and I've done a scratch test, and the angle looks good. So I'm going to make a very light pass across my wheel. Again, I've brought up my burr with one pass. I'm going to open up the clamp, and I'm going to insert the penny underneath the stop block. What this is doing is it's creating a slight degree of angle. It's bringing it a little bit further away from the edge and further up the face of the scissor, and I'm going to make a light pass across the diamond wheel. I'll then move the penny further forward up into the block. Now let's rotate this around so this can be seen. You can see I've gone about halfway up the upper part of the clamp, and that has increased the angle again. So again, I'll make a very light pass. And then I will put the penny all the way up so that it comes to a point where it's stopping. It's all the way up against the hump of the upper part of the clamp. And that again will increase your angle. This is a very quick way to have a very consistent angle and a very consistent step up without having to deal with switching the angles on the clamp. So again, we have a step up front surface of the blade at this point as well. And the third way to use this clamp, you can actually just do the step up freehand if you wish, but you have to, once you pull the clamp out of the detent position, because it is detented when it is all the way up against the stop block, you have to actually start holding it in position, otherwise it would just fall down. So when it's in a locked position, you're good for your initial, you still want to hold it and pinch it together so that it won't move at all. But as you make your first pass to create your initial edge, but then after that I'm going to be holding it freehand as I step up. So I'm just going to go right up against the wheel, a very light pass, and again I brought up a new burr. Looks good. I'm going to open this thing up just a little bit. You can see how I'm moving it up just slightly. Make a light pass across, move it up slightly again, make a light pass across, move it up slightly again, make a light pass across, and then check my work. Once the shear has been sharpened, we will need to remove the burr from the inside and re-establish the inside line. Set our shear on the block, about a 3% dip. In other words, the tip should not be straight across the block, it should lay down the curvature of the block just slightly to compensate for set. And you want to pull back to start. Go forward again, pull back, and we'll work back and forth on this block. What I'm doing right now is I'm recreating that inside line. I've already pulled the burrs back on the initial pull. I'm going to come to a complete stop, lift off. I'm going to check my inside line and make sure that I have a good looking inside line across the inside of that shear. I'm going to switch over to the finish block and do the same thing. I'm going to reclamp my first blade into the clamp. This is the one that I actually did where we stepped up by increasing the angle in increments from 40 degrees up to 60 degrees. So I have my clamp still set at this point at 60 degrees. What I'm going to do though is change my clamp back to 40 degrees. So I'm going to set this for 40, go ahead and lock my clamp into place, and I'm going to flip this over into the honing position to work. You always want your blade facing down when you're working on this wheel. As a soft wheel, it's pliable, so you want to make sure that you do not cut into this wheel. We'll go ahead and add some polishing compound to the wheel. Just a light touch, just enough to cloud it up some. And then we will work back and forth on this wheel. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually polishing my initial edge. Okay, my initial edge is polished in at this point. I will then, instead of stepping up, apply more polishing compound. And now I can rotate the clamp freely up and down the face of the scissors towards the spine. So I'll rotate up slightly, freehand, rotate up slightly again, and each time I'm rotating up or down just a little. Again, same thing. I can work the throat if I wish, up and down the wheel. I can work along the blade by rotating up and down and work the tip some if I wish. This is a very forgiving wheel. There's lots of steps that you can go through. I'll start at the spine and work my way down to the edge. Make a light pass all the way across and take a look at the work that I've done. And I've now re-convexed this shear with the convexing clamp. Very simple to use. After you've polished your blade, make certain that you have a towel or a paper towel or something that you can wipe all of the excess polishing compound off with. Set the shear aside. Do the same thing with the other blade. Now that the shear is together, we'll do a quick test cut all the way to the tip. Cutting well and clean. No pull at the tip. Now we go on to test with wet tissue paper and here.